This experience needs to be treated with all urgency because there is no time. It was revealed about 2 months ago, and the sister who had this experience wanted to keep it to herself. But she has already realized that the signs she saw that would usher in this experience are already happening. Get prepared. There's no time left. Tell us once again where you were watching from, so that we can pray along with you and connect as families. I will begin sharing today's experience. I want to share something with you that changed my life completely. I'm sitting here right now, and my hands are still shaking a little bit as I write this. Not because I am cold or scared in a bad way, but because what happened to me in early January was so real, so clear, that I cannot stop thinking about it even now. My name is Maria, and I am 79 years old. I need to tell you this experience because I cannot carry it alone anymore. It is too heavy for my heart. It is too important. I have been thinking about whether I should tell anyone at all, or if I should keep it to myself like I usually do. I am not a person who likes to talk too much or make a big fuss about myself. My whole life I have been quiet. I go to church, I pray in my home, I raised my children, I worked small jobs, and I kept to myself. Nobody knows much about me, and I like it that way. But this thing that happened to me, it is different. It is something that God wants me to share, and I know this in my spirit. So I am sharing it now, and I hope you will listen with an open heart and really think about what I am telling you. What I want to tell you happened on a day in early January when I was very, very sick. I had been in bed for about 5 days with a fever and pain in my body that would not go away, no matter what I did. My daughter was taking care of me, and she was worried because I was getting weaker, not stronger. Every day I was weaker than the day before. I could feel my body failing me. I remember that morning very clearly because I remember feeling like I could not breathe properly anymore. My chest felt heavy, like someone was standing on it with all their weight. My heart was beating in a strange way, and I could feel something was very wrong inside my body. The pain was sharp, and it was getting worse every moment that passed. I remember thinking that this might be it, that this might be the day I go to meet God. I was not ready, but I felt like my body was ready to stop working. My daughter called the ambulance, and they came very quickly. I remember the paramedics putting things on my chest and asking me questions, but I could not answer them clearly because I was so tired and everything was becoming dark around me. They were moving very fast and talking to each other in words I could not understand. I remember them putting a mask on my face and telling me to breathe, but I could not breathe properly even with the mask. I remember feeling myself drifting away, like I was floating up from my bed and away from my body. It was not painful, but it was scary, because I did not understand what was happening to me. I remember feeling so peaceful at first, and then I remember nothing for a little while. What happened next is what I want to tell you about, and this is the most important part of my experience. I found myself in a place that was not the hospital, and not anywhere I had ever been before. I was standing in a very large room, and it looked like nothing I have ever seen before in my whole life. It was not dark, but it was not exactly bright either. The light was coming from everywhere and nowhere at the same time, which sounds strange, I know, but that is the only way I can describe it to you. This room was enormous, much bigger than any building I have ever been inside. It was like a huge hall or a cathedral, but there were no walls that I could see clearly. The room just seemed to go on and on forever. This room was empty, but it did not feel empty, if that makes sense to you. It felt full of something I could not see, but could feel all around me. The air felt thick with presence, like the room was alive somehow. I was standing there, and I was not sick anymore. My body felt strong and healthy in a way I had not felt in many, many years. I was not old in the way I felt. I felt young again. I felt light, like I could breathe the easiest I have ever breathed in my whole life. My pain was completely gone. My lungs felt full of clean air. My heart felt like it was beating the way it used to beat when I was a young woman. Then I saw something at the far end of this huge room. It was a giant board, like the big screens they have in airports or bus stations, where they show all the information about flights and buses. This board was very bright, brighter than any light I have ever seen, but it did not hurt my eyes. The light from it was beautiful and warm. The board was showing the year 2026. The numbers were big and clear and white against a dark background, and they were blinking very slowly, like they were trying to tell me something. I felt like the board was trying to tell me something important, like I needed to pay attention to what I was seeing. I could not look away even if I wanted to. It was like the board had captured my attention completely. Under the year 2026, I saw another number that made me confused at first. The number was 13. I remember asking out loud, "What does 13 mean?" My voice sounded clear and strong in that place. I was not sure if anyone was listening to me, but I felt like I needed to ask this question. Then I felt a presence behind me. It was not scary at all. It was warm and calm and peaceful. It was the most peaceful feeling I have ever experienced. A voice began to speak to me, and this voice was speaking in my language, Spanish, which was good because I could understand everything clearly. The voice was gentle, but also very strong and clear. It was not like a human voice exactly, but it was not robotic either. It was a voice that seemed to speak directly to my spirit, not just to my ears. The voice told me that I needed to count. I did not understand what I was supposed to count, but I felt like I should trust what this voice was telling me. There was authority and love in the voice at the same time. The voice showed me that I needed to count the months. I said out loud that this did not make sense because a year only has 12 months, not 13. How can I count 13 months when there is no 13th month in the calendar? But then something changed on the board in front of me. Instead of showing just numbers like it had been doing, it started showing pictures. The first picture was from the year 2019 when COVID started. I could see people wearing masks and looking scared and worried. Hospitals were full of sick people. The picture changed to 2020, and I could see the whole world had stopped moving. Everything was closed and empty. Schools had no children. Offices had no workers. Stores had no customers. People were sitting in their houses, scared to go outside. Streets were empty. Cities looked like ghost towns. Then the board showed the number 12 under these pictures. Then I understood what God was showing me. 12 is the normal number of months in a year. 12 normal months. But then the board showed something else. It showed a +1 sign, and then it added 1 to the 12. 12 plus 1 equals 13. I felt something very sharp in my stomach when I saw this happen. I felt like the board was trying to tell me that after a normal year of 12 months, there would be an extra month that would be different from all the others. An extra month of something bad, something that would shake the world and make people afraid. The voice told me that this is the pattern that I needed to understand. It showed me this pattern again and again on the board. It showed me 2019 and 2020. Then it jumped forward to 2025. Under 2025, it showed 12 again. Then it added +1, and the board became very bright as it showed 12 plus 1 equals 13 over and over and over again. The numbers kept repeating and repeating, and I could not look away from them. I remember asking the voice why it was showing me this same thing so many times. I felt confused and a little bit scared now because I did not understand the meaning. Then, something happened that made me shake even in this place that was not the hospital. The board changed and I saw many people. But these people were not sick like the COVID people had been in the pictures before. They were not lying in beds with tubes in their noses helping them breathe. They were not coughing and coughing until they could not stop. Instead, they looked weak. They were fainting without warning. Some were lying on the ground and other people were rushing around them trying to help. I saw nurses running with small machines, and these machines had numbers on them that were blinking and dropping very fast. The numbers were going down, 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 which seemed to mean something was getting worse. The machines looked like they were measuring something important about the people. But I could not understand what they were measuring. The voice told me that the next shaking of the world would not be the same as COVID had been. It told me that people would look for answers in the wrong places. They would be confused and scared because they could not find answers. They would not understand what was really happening to their world. I asked the voice if this meant another disease, another sickness like COVID that would spread from person to person. The voice did not answer me directly the way I was expecting it to. It only told me to count again, to look at the board again and see what was there. I was learning that this voice would teach me in ways that made me think and understand for myself. The board showed me 2025 equals 12. Then it showed 1 extra month of shaking equals 13. The voice told me that the 13 meant a warning. It meant that God was warning the people of the earth about what was coming so they could prepare. Bowed. The number 13 began to break apart right in front of my eyes. It split into two separate numbers, 1 and 3. Then the board showed 1 plus 3 equals 4. The voice told me that 4 meant the 4th year after the last full recovery. I told the voice that I did not understand what it meant. My mind felt slow because I am old, and this was so much information coming at me all at once. My brain was trying to catch up with what I was seeing and hearing. Then the board began to count very slowly, like a teacher helping a student who is struggling to understand something difficult. The voice explained to me that 2022 was when the world started to recover from COVID. 2023 was the first year after recovery. 2024 was the second year after recovery. 2025 was the third year after recovery. And 2026 was the 4th year and the final year. So 2026 was the year that came 4 years after the world started to recover. This made sense now. The numbering was making a pattern that I could understand. My heart was beating so fast now, even in this place that was not real like the normal world. I could feel my heart beating in my chest like it was trying to get out. The voice told me that the 4th year would test the world again. The voice told me that 2026 was going to be a year of testing for all the people on earth. Every person, every family, every country would be tested in different ways. This is when I felt fear come into me in a way I had never felt before, even worse than when I was sick in my body. My hands were shaking, just like they are shaking now as I write this to you. I asked the voice directly if this meant another pandemic was coming, another disease that would spread all over the world like COVID did and kill many people. The voice did not answer me the way I was expecting. It did not say yes or no directly. Instead, it told me something else that was more important. It told me to prepare the people. It told me that I needed to warn people. It told me to tell them to get ready. It told me that God loves the people and does not want them to suffer without knowing that something is coming. The voice said that God gives warnings so that people can prepare themselves and their families and their communities. The voice said that God wants people to be spiritually ready for what is coming. Then the board changed again and I saw different pictures. These pictures were not about sickness only. I saw a woman holding her child, and they both looked very worried about something. The worry was in their faces and in their bodies. The woman was trying to comfort the child, but she herself looked scared. I saw a man sitting outside a clinic, and he looked tired and scared and like he did not know what to do. His face was old with worry. I saw long lines of people waiting for something, not thousands like during COVID times, but enough that it made my heart worry. The lines were long, and people were patient but also nervous. Some people looked angry, some people looked sad. But what made this different from COVID was this. The people were not only worried about being sick, they were worried about food. They were worried about money. They were worried about being able to travel and see their families. They were worried about restrictions that would prevent them from living their normal lives. It felt like many bad things were happening at the same time, all together, making things worse and worse. It felt like the world was being tested in many different ways, not just from sickness. I could feel the confusion and fear and worry of all these people on the board. It was like I could feel what they were feeling. Even though I was watching them from far away, I could feel their pain in my own heart. I could feel their fear in my own body. It was like I was connected to all of them, and I felt what they felt. This was one of the most difficult parts of the vision for me to experience. Let me tell you more about what I saw about the health situation in 2026. This is very important because many people will get sick. The board showed me something that started with sickness, but it was different from COVID in many ways. I could see people who were getting weak very quickly. Their bodies were losing energy fast. They were fainting without warning, falling down and not knowing what was happening. Some people were vomiting and could not keep any food or water in their bodies. Their stomachs could not hold anything. Some people had trouble breathing, but it was not like the COVID breathing problem where people needed machines to help them breathe. This was something that made their whole body weak and unable to work or move or think clearly. I saw people who could barely stand up. I saw people who could barely stand up. I saw people who were confused about where they were. I saw doctors and nurses who looked confused because they could not figure out what was wrong with these people. They were running many tests, but the tests were not showing them the answers they needed. They were trying different medicines, but the medicines were not working like they expected. The doctors did not know if this was a virus or a bacteria or something else that they had never seen before. The fear was in their eyes because they did not have answers for the people who were sick. I could see the frustration on their faces. I could see them talking to each other and shaking their heads like they did not know what to do. What I noticed was that the sickness was spreading through communities, but it was not the big panic like COVID had been. It was quieter, but somehow more confusing. Some people would get sick, and then a few days later, more people in their family would get sick. Then people in their community would get sick. Then people in their city would get sick, but doctors did not know what it was. They could not agree on what was causing it. Some people were saying it was a new virus that nobody had seen before. Some people were saying it was something in the food or water that was making people sick. Some people were saying it was something in the air that people were breathing, but nobody knew for sure, and the not knowing made people scared. The uncertainty was making everything worse. The scary part was that this sickness was happening at the same time that other bad things were happening. So people were scared not just about being sick, but about everything else too. It made the fear bigger and deeper in people's hearts, because they did not know what to do or where to turn for help. They did not know if they should go to the hospital or stay home. They did not know if they should spend their money on medicine or food. They did not know if they should believe what the news was telling them. Fear was everywhere. Fear was in every home. Fear was on every street. I also saw that some people were getting sicker than other people. Some people were getting better after a few days, but other people were getting worse and worse. Some people were getting complications from the sickness where more things went wrong with their bodies. Some old people like me were dying, and younger people were dying too, which made no sense to anyone. The sickness did not follow a pattern that doctors could understand and predict. It seemed random, which made people even more scared. Then the board showed me the economy part, and this was very clear to me. This part was scary because it was about money and survival. I saw businesses that were closing because people did not have money to spend. I saw factories that were not working because workers were either sick or scared to go to work. I saw people losing their jobs, and I saw them going home with empty hands and worried faces. I saw them trying to figure out how they would pay for their rent and their food and their children's school. I saw families sitting around dinner tables that had less food than before. I saw parents trying to figure out how to pay for medicine, how to pay for rent, how to pay for electricity, how to pay for everything they needed to survive. What I saw was that money was becoming very hard to find. Some people had savings, but they were using those savings very quickly because they had no money coming in. Some people did not have any savings at all, so they were in very, very bad trouble from the beginning. I saw people waiting in long lines, and they were waiting for help from the government. They were waiting for money that might not come. Or if it came, it would not be enough for their families to survive. I saw desperation in the faces of people who did not know how they would feed their children. The board showed me that prices for food were going up very high, higher than people could believe. Things that cost $1 before were now costing $2 or $3. Food that was cheap was now expensive. Medicine that was expensive was now very, very expensive. Rent that was hard to pay was now impossible to pay for most people. People who worked small jobs like I did in my life, they could not afford to buy the things they needed for their families. They were choosing between buying food or buying medicine. They were choosing between paying for electricity or paying for rent. They could not do both. Some people were working 2 jobs and still not having enough money. I saw old people like me who were on pensions, and their pensions did not have enough money to buy food and medicine and pay for their houses. The pensions stayed the same, but the prices of everything went up and up. So people who had worked their whole lives suddenly did not have enough money to live. I saw young people who were just starting their lives, and they were scared because they could not find jobs. I saw people who had been working their whole lives suddenly without a job because the business where they worked had to close. I saw worry in their faces that went very deep. This worry was not just about being sick. It was about how they would survive, how they would take care of their families, what would happen to their children. The voice told me that the economy was going to struggle in 2026 in ways that people had not seen in many, many years. Not like the Great Depression my grandmother told me stories about when she was young, but bad enough that families would have to make hard choices, bad enough that some people would go hungry, bad enough that people would lose their homes, bad enough that people would lose hope about their future. I saw that some countries would have problems more than other countries. Some places would be okay because they had money saved, but other places would be in very big trouble. I saw that some people would get richer because they had money to invest and buy things cheaply, but most people would get poorer. The difference between rich and poor would become bigger and bigger, and this would make poor people very angry. I saw anger in the faces of people who were struggling while they saw other people getting richer. Then the board showed me what was happening with restrictions. This part confused me at first because I thought COVID restrictions were finished and would never come back again. But the voice told me that there would be new restrictions, and these restrictions would come from fear. They would come from governments trying to control things because they did not understand what was happening. They would come from fear of sickness spreading from person to person. They would come from fear of riots happening and people getting very angry and causing problems. They would come from fear of people getting too scared and causing trouble in their cities and countries. I saw on the board that some places would not allow people to leave their cities. Some places would not allow gatherings of people in groups. Some places would tell people that they could not travel to other countries or even to other parts of their own country. Some places would tell people that they could not go to certain businesses or stores because those businesses and stores could spread the sickness. Some places would tell people that they could not go to church or to school or to their jobs. These restrictions would be different from COVID restrictions because they would be coming from different reasons and would be different in how they were done, but they would still stop people from living freely and doing what they wanted to do. What I saw was people getting very angry about these restrictions. I saw protests in the streets. I saw people arguing with police. I saw communities being divided because some people thought the restrictions were good and necessary to protect people, and other people thought the restrictions were wrong and unfair and taking away their freedom. I saw governments trying to enforce these restrictions with cameras and technology, watching where people went and what they did. I saw tracking systems being put on people. I saw systems being set up to know where everyone was all the time. I saw a society where people did not trust each other anymore.